Hello BookTube. As promised, it's time for a book haul. Before we get started, we decided to make an appearance. Little two cosmic lovers there. If you've been with my channel since the beginning, you know it's been a while since I brought out these two. I've had this tapestry hanging on my wall for almost 2 years now. I keep saying I'm going to name these two, but I have yet to name them. What do you guys think? I might just leave them nameless. Be better off that way. Yeah, well, either way, say hi everybody. Okay, book haul time. Truth be told, a lot of the books you'll see here I bought I got a few weeks ago. There's a good reason why I've delayed making this book haul video for so long. We'll get to that in a moment. So for starters, got two different stores. We got my local Barnes and Noble and a used bookstore. A little books from each one. Start with the Barnes and Noble one for you. See, getting my attention recently. I've watched so many documentaries and read biographies about famous authors. Then you think about how many of their works I've actually read. It's almost none. So I wanted to do something about that. So one of the figures that always intrigued me most that I want to get started reading, the Ernest Hemingway. A couple of his here I'll show you in a moment. What a complex, interesting character. One of my favorite YouTube channels. There's this. He's a neuropsychologist or a neuropsychiatrist. His name is Professor Graeme Yorston. He does little biographies about famous artists, other celebrities, even Roman emperors, and he gives a little biography. He tries to give his little analysis as a neuropsychiatrist of these people. And he did not one but two episodes on Ernest Hemingway. Really fascinating. I'll find his video on Hemingway and I'll put it in the description box below for everybody if you're interested. So for starters, short stories. This one that just intrigued me was called Men Without Women. You can tell it's Men Without Women because the stories are short. So if you want to know what that means, Men Without Women, there you go. You could never make a novel out of that. So it is a collection of Hemingway's short stories. Let's see, a couple of the more popular ones listed on the back here are The Killers, Hills Like White Elephants, and In Another Country. I have never read any of these, so I'm definitely looking forward to a good short story. Once I read them, I'll get back to you as soon as I get started. Maybe I'll check in along the way as I go. This one, just by pure coincidence, another one of the books I got at the used bookstore. Well, this intrigued me because it had a picture of a boxer on the front, and I'll explain a little bit more about why that interested me, and when I get to one of the books later on in this haul. Okay, now Hemingway's novels. So I was looking at his bigger ones first. Barrel to Arms, Sun Also Rises, For Whom the Bell Tolls. I was looking to buy one of those. But I saw this one. The cover just spoke to me as soon as I picked it up. I'd never heard of this one. It's called Across the River and Into the Trees. So, that cover, that really grabs your attention. As soon as I picked it up, the first thing I see is a gondolier. So I assume, oh, must be in Italy. Because Hemingway, when he served in the military, he was stationed and was wounded in Italy. So it makes sense he write a book there. You got the gondolier. And sure enough, when we read the back, it does. It does take place in Italy. It's a story about a man finds a love who changes his life, but it's Hemingway, so I guarantee this is going to end in a tragic fashion. There we go. Across the river and into the trees. And as it says, there's soon to be a major motion picture. So I'll Google that later myself. But yeah, kind of like an impressionistic-looking painting on this thing. There we go. So yeah, Hemingway. It's a good guy to get started with if you want to read classic authors. Okay, so now for the used bookstore. My favorite place in my favorite town in the world, the store called Jack's Music Shop in Red Bank, New Jersey. I'm born and raised in that area. I go to Red Bank all the time. On a day off, if the weather's good, I would go to Red Bank all the time, just hang out in town, get a coffee and a pastry from one of the many bakeries there, and sit up by the marina and the water. And so last year, Jack's Music expanded into a used bookstore. And I took a photo of their used book section. It's in the thumbnail. I used the thumbnail pardon me, I used the photo as the thumbnail for this video. And I mean, this store, they always had some used books, but it was like, they had like 2 bookcases in the back of the store, and that was it. Like last year they expanded, they wanted to be known as a used bookstore. You gotta adapt or die, essentially. After all, physical media is down in music, so you gotta expand to stay alive. I mentioned this book haul was delayed a little bit, almost like 3-4 weeks ago now when I went to Jack's. It was a beautiful spring day, so I had the idea. I go to Jack's, then I'd sit out by the marina and the water, and I'd film this little video there. The only trouble was it poured rain, so that kind of killed my plans for any video. So these little books I bought have been sitting on my shelf for almost a month now, but better late than never. We'll get into them right now. So, of course, being a music store, they have a section just for books about music. As we came across this guy, Groovin' High. Love that title. The Life of Dizzy Gillespie, one of the most famous trumpet players. And they call him like the successor to Louis Armstrong from back in the day. So I love that font and just the title, Groovin' High. Love that. So of course, being one of like the all-time legendary musicians, I had to pick up that one. All right. This one here has a little bit of a humorous story behind it. So I just saw the title. It says A Cure for Gravity with Joe Jackson. And I immediately thought, oh, Joe Jackson, the singer. I've heard his album with he sang for the band leader Count Basie. Oh, legend. I didn't think any more than that as I picked up the book and bought it. It wasn't until I got home when I was going to play the music on Spotify, I typed in Joe Jackson, Count Basie, and it hit me like, oh, I got the name wrong. That singer I was talking about, his name was Joe Williams. Oh, Joe Williams and Count Basie, okay. Which brings us to this question, like, who the hell is Joe Jackson? I have no idea who this guy is. So they wrote a book about him, so it must be somewhat good. So as soon as I read this and find out who this guy is, I'll get back to you. I'll let you know if I find anything cool. Oh, in addition to that, I'm going to search YouTube. If I find a clip of that guy, Joe Williams and Count Basie, I will once again put it in the description box down below for you if you're interested. All right, got 2 big boys coming up right now. I'm sure we can all relate to this, folks. When we hear our favorite author is writing a book, I think the first question we ask is, when is it out? And then the second question, what's it about? I think that applies for both fiction and nonfiction writers. Like when we hear our favorite writer has a new project, we just want to know when we can read it. And one of my favorite nonfiction writers, predominantly a biographer, is a man named Walter Isaacson. This guy's written biographies on a wide range of people, like Albert Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci. He wrote this book called Codebreakers about this woman who did like groundbreaking research with like genetics. I got the audiobook for that. I'm very fascinated to learn about this one. But here's one of his biggest ones that I found. I got Steve Jobs. You can tell this used book came from Target. It still has the sticker on there. Yeah, great condition. It's a big book too, isn't it? And again, the guy had a big life, didn't he? Like Apple, Pixar, the iPhone. There's a little picture of his younger self on the back. Of course, one of the more fascinating individuals and one of the most impactful individuals in our lifetime. And of course, there's so many books about Steve Jobs, but when I see that name Walter Isaacson on there, like I'm going to that one first. And lastly, remember before I mentioned Ernest Hemingway, how he had the boxer on the cover of that book, and how that caught my attention. Well, here's why. Because I came across this book. I first read this book when it came out, like back in like 2006. That's how long ago this was. I saw it in Jack's. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I immediately grabbed it. It's a book called Tunney, Boxing's Brainiest Champ and His Upset of the Great Jack Dempsey. One of the greatest history books and biographies I've ever read. So, mainly they call this the title character here, Tunney, he was a very famous boxer, going all the way back to like the 1920s and 30s. And of course, as you mentioned, his upset of the great Jack Dempsey, that was his big claim to fame. He beat one of the greatest heavyweight fighters ever for the title. And going back to what I was saying about boxing, like, one of my greatest loves, always been fascinated with boxing. I consider myself in a story, and I can never stop learning about these old-time fighters and whatnot. And my find it's hard to believe too, even as a kid, like I'm a little kid, I would watch boxing with my grandfather. I'd have like a little scorecard. Like I'd make my little scorecard and score the fights myself. And a little kid me with my grandfather and my little scorecard. So it was such like fond memories. Like nowadays I don't watch boxing anymore. It's like I think at one point in my mid-20s I just got sick of watching people beat each other up for my entertainment. I kind of felt embarrassed in the first place. Also too, like, I don't know how boxing is nowadays, but like it's such a corrupt game. Like I've seen so many fights where, the guy won, and the judges just screwed him over and gave it to the other guy. It's such a corrupt game. So like, it's really disheartening too. This isn't a game. These guys are like, you literally put your health and well-being on the line every time you get in the ring. To see someone go through all that just to get screwed over by a judge, it's very disheartening. But it doesn't make me any less of a lover of boxing history. In this book here, this touches on so many different things, not just Tunney and Jack Dempsey himself, but like history of boxing too. Like in the early 1900s, at one point they pretty much give you the history of boxing. How like at one point boxing was illegal, and rightfully so, because it was very corrupt, the gambling and whatnot. Like even the horse racing too, that was all made illegal. So it tells you stories how like they would have the fights on ships. They would sail out to international waters and have the fights out there. All these crazy stories. And like at one point, like in the early 1900s, like in boxing matches, you could only win if you won by a knockout. If the fight went the distance, the number of rounds, then it was considered a no contest. Along the way, promoters and people are realizing that they were missing out on a lot of money, because what happened was the sports writers, even though a fight was a no contest, the guy didn't win by knockout, the sports writers would like score the rounds and say, well, so and so got the better of the opponent, like he was the more dominant fighter. And the promoters and whatnot realized that, oh, there's money to be made here, and that's when they started scoring the fights with the judges and cards and everything. So money. Very interesting time period. Also too, not just like the sport itself, but you learn about like the history of Madison Square Garden. Like, not the building we know today, but the original one, which was located in a different spot. Madison Square Garden was partly funded by the Vanderbilts. And yeah, it's just like a treasure trove of like historical goodies, if you're into this type of thing. Even I'm going by memory here, the last time I read this, the writer himself, Jack Kavanaugh, he met Gene Tunney. He was an older man. He was on a train. He was on his way to Harvard to give a lecture on Shakespeare. Hence the title. Boxing's brainiest champion is upset of the great Jack Dempsey. Yeah. And that fight too with Dempsey, that was like the biggest money fight ever at the time. I think there was like 100,000 people in attendance too. Great history. So Tunney, like I said, I jumped for joy. I couldn't believe it when I saw this on the shelf in the store. And that'll do it, folks. I was gonna hold up all the books I bought, but there's too many and they're too heavy, so they're sitting on the floor. Anyway, now that the weather's better, I'll make my way up to Red Bank pretty soon. I'll take you along the water with me, show you some cool sights. As a matter of fact, too, I forgot to mention this earlier. Talking about how Jack's Music Shop, they were featured very prominently, if you will, in the movie Chasing Amy by Kevin Smith. There's like Clerks, Jane Silent Bob. Matter of fact, there's in the movie a young Ben Affleck and Jason Lee, like they were unknowns at this time. They lived in an apartment above Jack's, and there's a scene in the movie that's shot inside the store. It's just hilarious. You see like some of the same people are still there today who work there, and like there's a wall now in the store where they have like t-shirts, but back in the 90s it was the cassette wall. So if I find a clip from that movie, once again I will find that and put it in the description box down below for you. So until then, folks, happy reading. Take care and have a happy, healthy spring.